Okay, let's get this started. Hello, everyone. It is I, Dark Symphony 7 Simpson, with another. I'll be leaving a link to the story in the description below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, click on that bell for notifications, leave a comment in the comment section below on your thoughts of the story, and finally, this is my opinion. My opinion is not indicative of everyone in the world, so please respect that. So, the story I'm reviewing is Kunoichi by Kara19. It is a Kim Possible fanfiction, and I actually wanted to review the story, not so much for the content itself, but more it's very unique for a story in terms of presentation and the idea behind it. So, but we'll get to that when I get to that. But for the plot, the only thing you should know in terms of the canon, and this takes place during the final season of Kim Possible. The finale hasn't happened, so stuff with like the alien invasion and Dragon and Shigo turning good, that hasn't happened yet. But the plot of the story itself follows Yori. For those of you who don't know, who never watched Kim Possible, Yori was a character introduced in Kim Possible when with Ron Stoppable actually got a transfer with a guy named Hirotaka and went to Japan. And so when Ron went there, he met this girl named Yori, who basically taught him how to be a ninja and all that. It's been like so long since I've seen Kim Possible, so it's like I'm vaguely remembering it. I know that Yori was the one who taught Ron Stoppable how to be a ninja and all that, and the ninja classes, because Ron went to Yamanouchi, and then Hirotaka basically got like Kim wanting to make out with him, but despite the fact he didn't even care. But that's beside the point. The story is kind of a origin, kind of like a story focusing specifically on Yori. So the story actually starts out with Yori's birth, with her family, her mother, her father, her two brothers, Yusuke and God dang it, Yusuke and Takeshi, along with an unofficial member of the family, Kimiko, and they basically give birth. The mother gives birth to Yori, and then they run afoul of the Yakuza, and so they basically run. They basically try to run, but they get caught up. Ninjas from Yamanouchi actually get involved and basically defeat the Yakuza members. However, the father, Kenji, realizes that the rest of his family needs to be unsafe, so especially after the fact that his wife died, Yori's mother, in the Assyrian scuffle. Basically, they were in a car. The car kind of took off, crashed into a tree. The rest of the family survived. However, the mother, as weak as she was from giving birth, she couldn't make it. She died from blood loss. Tragic stuff. And so her father basically gave Yori to the ninjas of Yamanouchi, and Takeshi and Yusuke basically went to like other members of Yamanouchi to basically raise them. Kimiko went with Kenji because she wanted to be with him, and then we got a time forward to the events during season 4, where Yori is now pretty much an adult and aging stuff. Kind of works differently in Japan. I believe in Japan, you're once you hit 18. No, once you hit 16. Is it 16? Yeah, no, 18 years. Yeah, once you reach 18 in Japan, you're technically classified as an adult. So, but that's more of a Japan thing. I know in America it's 21, and other countries it's different years. But in Japan, once you hit 18, you're an adult. There you go. Okay. Sorry, this is just a confusing story. I can't really talk about this story without wanting to talk about what's like the specific thing that's wrong with it. But I'm gonna try. So the plot actually starts on when she's 18, and she gets a message from Master Sensei about a girl named Kimiko, Yori's unadopted sister, needing help by a new man. So Sensei basically like, you're worthy enough to find out about your family. Here's a special mission. You don't have to do this if you don't want to. It's just there on the table for you. Yori takes the mission because she wants to find out about her family. She goes to meet Kimiko. Kimiko at this time is just basically a hardened assassin who basically just wants to, who's just basically burned herself out. That's basically Kimiko's whole character, is that she's just literally burned herself out. I'll talk more about it in detail, but more or less. And she's being joined by Hirotaka. Hirotaka and Yori are basically very close comrades and consider themselves brother and sister. So they go to Tokyo, where they meet a girl named Hoshi, who was actually a member of Yamanouchi, but she dropped out due to the fact she didn't like how most of the people of Yamanouchi treated her, because Hoshi is Japanese American, so she's basically half gaijin, the official term to refer to someone foreign in Japan. Basically, all three of them kind of get wrapped up in this whole conspiracy where they run into Kimiko. Kimiko basically said, well, the king of the Yakuza, he took over the entire Yakuza, and now he's holding your father hostage. They go try and save him. They get wrapped up with the Yakuza. Yakuza's like, well, it's not... Oh, no, I do not have your father, but I know who might know where he is. That girl, Kimiko. And the reveal that the Yoma, which is really my only official problem with the story, is this guy decided to call them the Yoma when they're actually called yokai. Like, it's just really weird. Yeah, that's like my only real big problem with the story, is that he constantly calls yokai Yoma. I'm like weirdly thinking of Yomu from Toho, with the girl with the sword and the little half phantom, half like kind of like hanging around her. But it does lead to a very, very emotional climax where Yori and her friends, and later her brothers, because she actually manages to meet her brothers, collide with the Yakuza, kind of slightly collide with the Yakuza forces, because it turns out Saito, the leader of the Yakuza, was building this gigantic army to fight the yokai. Because it turns out the yokai is basically kind of running Japan as a whole from within the shadows for like ever since World War II. And basically the reason why they're like prosperous in this story is because they took a bet, like the leaders, they made a deal with the yokai, and basically we want this prosperous nation. However, yokai have been slowly, like constantly, like, and when the economy reaches a peak, the yokai would just basically take over and destroy, and basically slowly destroy the world. So basically, Yori and her family, they kind of slightly team up with the yokai, not the yokai, the Yakuza, mainly just the leader. It's just Yori, and they basically fight the mastermind behind this, Akiyama. Akiyama. I don't know why I was having so much trouble saying that. Who basically turned out to actually possess the body of Yori's father, and using his father to kind of like control everything. And the story kind of climaxes with Yakuza stopped. The yokai completely destroyed. Their plan has been foiled. They're not gonna. They basically say, well, once we die, who knows what will happen to the economy of Japan? Well, we're gonna rest that. And then Yori says goodbye to her family. There's like a very sad funeral scene at the end. It's very touching. It's very sad. However, I do want to, before getting into this, I want to address the elephant in the room. Is this story is structured very, very differently from a lot of fan fiction I've reviewed, because of how it's written. I know I want to get this out of the way. So everyone knows that there's like different kinds of story. There's like different genres. There's different niches. Like there's drama, there's angst, there's a more general story, like a comedy, a dramedy, a romantic comedy, rom-com. There's all sorts of genres, but there's also all different types of reading a story. So like there's skimming, there's speed reading, there is deep analysis, there is just like slow reading. There's different. God, excuse me, I had a hiccup for some reason. There's different kinds of reading that everyone has. And when it comes to me, my preferred way of reading is I try and go slow. I go fairly slow unless it's fast paced, and I picture the entire story as a movie, as like a adventure, like a something you want to pick. Like you're watching a movie. Like I do it. Like I'm sitting in a movie theater and I'm watching the screen, and I watch everything as it's written, and picture them moving, their lips moving, their body, their body language, their facial structures, everything. And that's where this story comes in the fact that this story specifically needs this specific type of reading mindset to enjoy. Because if you don't read this story without picturing everything as a movie, you get that very, very vague sense that something is wrong, but you don't know what it is. It's kind of hard to describe because that's kind of describing this thing is hard to describe. You sense something's wrong, you sense something might be going on, like and you know something is wrong with what you're reading, but you don't know what it is. But once you read this story and you picture it as an actual movie going on, like the various parts of the story being scenes, uh, all the characters as actors, you go full force, and it becomes that this story is very, very good. If you don't have this mindset, the story is pretty average, like because you have that disconnect that you can't really figure out what's going on. But once you go into the story with this mindset, the story becomes borderline a masterpiece. The story is very, very good once you get into that mindset. It's very high paced, it's very high action, it has loads of little character quirks and stuff like that. You're just having a fun time. It's not a super serious story. Yeah, it does have a lot of serious moments, but it's interlaced with a lot of comedy. Like there's all the stuff with Yoshi and the stuff with Kimiko. Um, Kiritaka and Yori, they kind of quirk at each other. Kim Paso and Ronstable do actually show up halfway through the story to get involved, so they actually show up. There's lots of twists and turns. There's swerves, and there's double agents. There's interplay. There's subterfuge because you're dealing with ninjas. You got to deal with that, and everything kind of becomes gelled together in this very, very movie-like story that is just a lot of fun to read. It's not a super serious story, but it's one that you just can't help but put down because it comes off as a lot of fun. So with the characters, now that we got that out of the way, let's go on to the characters. Let's talk about Yori. Yori's the main character. She's basically kind of slowly, I guess you could call her the straight woman of the entire group between her, Hirotaka, and Hoshi, because Hoshi is more or less the jokey character, but Hirotaka is the one who's overly serious, who basically makes like a lot of snarky comments, and Yori's kind of the middle ground between them. She's serious enough that she kind of flows with that she gels with Hirotaka, but she's also jokey enough that she kind of plays with both of them. So it's a very good balance. She goes on again with the plot. She goes on the journey to find her family and she starts to break down because she doesn't know who to trust. She doesn't know how everything's going on. She knows that she follows her ninja instinct, so she knows that there's something more at play. But over time, she doesn't really figure out everything. This is mainly because most of the stuff that's discovered is actually discovered in like separate areas because once you get captured, they're kind of Yori is kind of separated from Hirotaka and Hoshi, so they kind of get the information separate through like separate avenues. So that way, while we the readers we know the full story, they only get like half the story because they don't really because they don't get the story that the other side has. So it really plays along with that. With her, there's also a lot of familiar bonds. Like she doesn't want anyone to die, especially her family, because she spent 18 years without knowing that she had any family. Then all of a sudden she gets dropped in with two brothers and a sister and all that. And we kind of get that. Hirotaka is very serious. He does have a snarky side. He is probably the weakest character, but that doesn't mean he's bad. He's just compared to Yori and Hoshi, he's kind of he's kind of like behind them. He's that kind of fits Hirotaka. He's like he's very super serious. He cares about Yuri a lot. He willingly went on this journey because he realized Yuri needs backup, and no one really trusts her as much as I do. So I'm gonna back her up, bro. Like brother and sister for life. And at the end, he actually leaves Yamanouchi. Like he willingly leaves. Okay, so oh god, it's hot. It's hot in here. I'm still recording in my car because I cannot stay in the house. Okay, so where was I? Oh yeah, Hirotaka. Yeah, at the end, he actually leaves Yamanouchi. He's already about to graduate, but he's like, the graduation's just formality. And he goes on an adventure with Hoshi, relating to Hoshi. Hoshi is a lot of fun. She's basically a pervert, like a very, very, very obnoxious pervert, but you kind of like that because she purposely tries to go over the top to kind of hide her insecurities because she's Japanese American. She went to train at Yamanouchi. However, everyone kind of was disgusted at her because of the simple fact that she had American lineage, and so people kind of treated her badly. So she's like, I'm just gonna go do my own thing, and so she technically left Yamanouchi. The end revealed that she still worked for the sensei, like because the whole like she actually was hired by Sensei to do the whole mission. So that's why she joined Hiro and Yori, because Sensei knows that they needed someone who's more streetwise. And who else streetwise besides Soshi? Like she's very jokey. She's very sarcastic. Like when they first meet her, she's like it's like, all right, I'm home, and she starts taking off her clothes. It's like, whoa, what are you doing? It's like, oh, sorry, I'm not used to having room over, unless I end up in bed with them. Oh, and she even gets Kim Possible on this end. Like she's very overly uncomfortable, like makes people uncomfortable. That's actually part of her charm, and the fact that she knows that people, even like all this time later, that people still kind of treat her as like an outsider, because not only does she is part American, but she also acts very American, and she has no shame about that. And that actually makes her very charming in her own way. Weirdly enough, when I picture her in my mind, I kind of give her like a Juri Han's voice. I don't know, kind of fit. And then we have Kimiko. Kimiko is a very much an enigmatic character. She don't really know what allegiances her side she's on. She's very much a wild card in the fact that when we first introduced to her, it's when she's a kid, and she basically swears to go with Kenji to help wipe off the Yakuza who basically threatened his family. But when we're reintroduced to her a little bit later in the story, we see this kind of husk. Okay. I actually got a call there for a second. I didn't realize I had a call, but I had to pause the video. Okay, so I was with Kimiko. So when we're introduced to Kimiko later in the story, she's become this sort of burnt out, hollow shell person who's just consumed by survival. Like she's still kind of wants to kill the Yakuza leader, but at the same time, she wants to kill Kenji for basically, in her words, kind of causing her to lead down this path, despite the fact she willingly went down this path. It's also revealed that apparently, like, she actually had carnal relations with Kenji over years, meaning, Kenji, don't know when, but yeah, like we're like when Yori first meets her, she's covered in scars. She has a match, like she's basically orders her to get like a sewing kit to basically to basically DIY stitching for herself because she had like a huge uh mark that's bleeding in her side that she basically just sews up like nothing's happened. And she's smoking. She gives off this vibe of just already dead and is just kind of going through the motions while simultaneously trying to find some purpose. And that's basically what happens in the climax where she kind of reawakens her purpose and now she wants to save Yori and save her family after years and years of being purposeless, having no purpose, having no reason to live besides just wanting to kill and kill. And it's just she goes from being enigmatic to very tragic in the sense that even when like after a while you kind of realize she's probably gonna die at the end, which actually does happen. She does die in the end. She basically sacrifices herself to finish off Akiyama basically by killing Kenji, because Kenji is basically being used as a puppet, and the only way to actually defeat Yakiyama is to kill Kenji, and she basically gets him out of there to basically do the deed because she knows that she's already on death's doors anyway. She's lost like a lot of blood. She's basically, especially the final image before she dies, she's like her body is full of cuts, like, and her half her body is like either the suit's teared or like it's covered in blood. Her head is busted open. She's barely cognizant, but she knows that Yori and her family don't deserve to die. She lived such a rough life that she's actually okay with dying. She fulfilled she got her purpose. She fulfilled that purpose, and so she kind of ends it with no regrets. With Akiyama basically breaking her neck as she's throwing the sword towards a heart, and basically ending it all. It's a kind of it's a very tragic end, and that kind of makes Kimiko a very, very well written character. It's you, and I think that's really. I don't really know what else to say about Kimiko, honestly, because what else to say about a character who's to entire first half of the story basically trying to hide everything from everyone, play everyone against each other, and then the second half reveals that she's utterly empty and broken, and she kind of wants to end it all, but at the same time she's clinging on to that last hope, that last frayed hope that something might happen to give her that purpose. It's very well written. It's very tragic in a sense. And the final character to talk about is Saito. Saito is the leader of the Yakuza. He comes off as a generic villain at first, but then over time, as we kind of get more and more details on the whole yokai thing, we kind of realize that he's kind of like the bad guy who's playing the devil you know versus the devil you don't know, because he's like, oh yeah, I do not want Japan to die, and I'm willing to basically take over the Yakuza, basically build an army, basically all this stuff to basically stop these even eviler people from basically killing everyone. So basically, he kind of goes from like a generic baddie who's like mentioned to like being a sort of anti-villain who basically knows he's a bad guy. He kind of still relishes being a bad guy, but realizes that these guys are way worse than me, and so I'd rather be a bad guy without these guys basically wanting to kill everyone. So and also the fact that the leader he took over from was actually way worse than him. So it's like, I have all these evil people, I have this army. I just don't want the entire world to die. So you gotta, and it does end with him and Yori actually kind of teaming up against Akiyama at first. He kind of gets destroyed, but he escapes with his last royal guard, Yo-Yo, who's like this little girl with psychic abilities. They manage to escape, and it kind of leaves on a cliffhanger with them kind of all recuperating, except for Yo-Yo, who's like, barely suffered anything. And I do like him. I do think he's fine. He's perfectly fit for this role because, again, this story kind of revolves around how ninjas operate. So there's lots of double bat. There's lots of deception and stuff that you won't see coming. And he kind of perfectly fits that as like a villain of being a generic guy, and then turning out to be kind of still evil, but doesn't want a greater evil from succeeding. So there's that. Grammar errors. There's a lot of grammar errors. There is a lot, namely the Yoma thing. It should be called yokai. There's that. Um, Pacing, befitting a story that's supposedly that's supposed to be written specifically like a movie, like you're watching a movie. The story is very fast paced. It starts off very slow, but once we get to the halfway point, it actually speeds up significantly. Like it goes from 0 to 100 in like a chapter, and it perfectly works with that. It perfectly encapsulates the idea of, here's like going slow to set everything up, and then once the yokai get revealed, it's like, let's go 100%, 100 miles per hour, baby, and you get like all this crazy stuff, and it works perfectly. Like you said, you have the slow build, and then once the climax starts approaching, it goes fast pace, and then the final chapter, of course, it slows everything down, kind of finish tying everything together with like Yori starving herself to the point where she nearly dies just so she can say goodbye, a final farewell to Kimiko and her father. The reveal that Hoshi was offered to join Yamanouchi again, but she turned it down because like, I'm an American. I act more like an American. That's not gonna gel with me. I'm gonna go, and then Hirotaka following after her, and all this stuff. It it's paced perfectly. It has a very good structure. Again, this is kind of owing to the fact you need to walk into the story with this specific mindset. If you don't, then how could you? How could you? And that overall leaves a very, very fun, entertaining story. And I can't help but love it. So that leads to what I recommended. Yes, with a caveat. You have again, as I said several times, you gotta walk it. You gotta read the story as a movie. If you don't, the story's not good. That's just honestly how it is. I just think that's perfectly fine. What would I change besides the grammar errors? I wouldn't change anything because, granted, you can change. You can say, "Oh, I'd change the writing style to basically make it read more like a book," but then that kind of ruins the whole point of what this story is supposed to do and what this story is supposed to be like. And I think if since the story, I will say, since the story ended on a cliff note, because we technically have two cliffhangers. We have the fact that Saito and all of his royal elite troops are still alive and they're healing, and there's also the fact that Hoshi and Hirotaka, they're going to go on their own adventure. I think if there was a sequel ever written, it kind of would be a story more focusing on Hoshi and Hirotaka. Leave Yori out of it because I think Yori would kind of want to stay and be with her brothers. Maybe have them show up every once in a while, and have it be more like a goofy thing where Hirotaka and Hoshi, they kind of go to America. They go to Middleton. They run into Kimpasso. They run into Shigo and Draken, and they're like, it's like we would be like yokai. You're nothing. You're nothing. You're just your jokes. And mainly, I just want to see Hoshi and Shigo react. Like Hoshi's pulling like the sexual act, and Shigo's like completely confused. Like what? Um, can I kill you? I don't know. Can I take off my shirt? It's like why are you talking like this? Am I making you uncomfortable? Yes. Good. I'm doing my job as a distraction. Your what? I basically Hirotaka just basically knocks off. Like I mainly just want to see Hoshi interact with Shigo. I don't know why, but I think Hoshi and Shigo would kind of be hilarious together. Just Shigo just being like the super serious woman, just completely confused over Hoshi's like sexual antics. Like, okay. But you could do anything you want with that. Like it can be like senior. You can even do like senior sort of things. Favorite part, I would have to say there's not really anything that stands out. Maybe Kimiko's death, but that's kind of obvious because that was like very foreshadowed way ahead of time. Like it wasn't even the halfway point of the story where you even realize, oh yeah, she's gonna die. That's pretty much gonna be end of her character. And there's all sorts of jazz. Like, I guess you could say the final farewell. Maybe I don't know. There's just nothing. There's just nothing that really stands out. That's just me. But yeah, that is Kunoichi. I really love the story. I think it's a very, very unique story that stands out in all the right ways for its very unique presentation and very unique writing style. And I do love it. I don't think it quite reaches Better Off Alone tier, but I think it's actually pretty close. I actually think Super Paper Chopper has some competition now. A spoiler alert, Super Paper Chopper is kind of in the lead right now. This was probably like a very close second. But I will leave that up to you. The next review I'm going to be doing, it's going to be the start of the Luniverse. I do have one story that I was asked to read first, but I'm going to do that first and then go into the Luniverse. So I look forward to talking about going back to the ponies. Curse you, Trixie! You always come back, you best pony, you. Aww. I will see you next time. This has been Dark Symphony 777, and